What's going on, everybody? I wanted to come on here and do I guess you can say, a first impressions of the show Bel-Air, which is airing on Peacock, which is the streaming service through NBC. And at first, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't realize how I was gonna feel about this particular show because I really am not a fan of reboots and, remakes of classic shows that I had grown up watching, as a person who was born in the late 80s, grew up in the 90s. The Fresh Prince is a huge part of my childhood, and it's a huge part of a lot of people's childhoods. So to actually see that they're doing something like this, actually I didn't know what to think or take away from it and everything like that. But I'm gonna be honest, after watching the first episode, I am thoroughly impressed to see the direction that they're going with this show. And before, let me give a disclaimer. This is not going to be me doing an ongoing review of the series. This is me just giving my first impression of the show in this, based on this first episode alone. Because what Peacock did is they dropped the first 3 episodes on their streaming platform. I actually just got done watching episode 1. So after I'm done doing this video, I'm gonna go watch the next 2 episodes. And this show is literally, I guess you could say, a reimagining of the classic show that we grew up with. As we all know, let me just tell you basically what a reimagining or versus a remake. A remake is actually just what it says. A remake is something that is point by point, hit by hit, the same thing that something else was already done, but just with new characters. There might be some little new nuances in there somewhere, but you can tell it's a remake. A reimagining is taking something that's already been done and flipping it on its head into another direction while still keeping some of the same nuances there while also telling their own story. As we all know, The Fresh Prince of Bel-Air was a sitcom. This story, or this show Bel-Air, is more of a drama. And when I say drama, I'm talking about it really goes there in certain aspects and when it comes to the story and the characters that even we grew up, watching and loving. I'm gonna put it this way. You're not gonna laugh as much with this show as you did with the sitcom. And maybe that's for good reason. And I like that they went with this direction. So basically, based on the first episode, sorry about that, I had to go deal with something. But anyway, basically how the show is almost like it's filling in some of the gaps that we didn't get from the show itself that we all recognized back in the 90s. So it basically, kicks off with Will. He's in Philly living with his mother. And he goes to a high school. He's like one of the popular kids in school. He's like a star basketball player. He is set to interview to go to a school on a scholarship, possibly to play basketball at a college in Virginia. I think they said VCU. So that's Virginia Commonwealth University. So that's where he's set to actually go. And everything is going fine for him. And then he ends up running into one of the people who's part of, I guess, he's one of the bad guys in the neighborhood. He basically challenges Will to a basketball game, like a street basketball game. And him and his friend Trey, who I actually found out is actually Ice Trey. If y'all remember, he was played in one episode by Don Cheadle. It didn't dawn on me until I looked at his face and I looked at how his hair was. And I said, wait a minute, is that Ice Trey from that one episode of Fresh Prince that Don Cheadle was on back in the day? And then I put 2 and 2 together and I said, that is definitely him. And he basically plays against this guy. The guy ends up getting washed. Will completely destroys him on the court. And then, one thing leads to another. Will gets into some trouble. And then that's when his mother sends him out to Bel-Air to go and live with his aunt and uncle. And his cousins. I don't want to like I said, this is just a first impressions of the episode, of this particular of the show that I've seen so far. It's not like me. I'm not doing a whole full blown review, mainly because there might be some people that might want to watch the show. And I don't want it to come off too reviewy like. So that pretty much happens here. But I really wanted to talk about how they did the characters this time around with the show, because there are some slight similarities, but there's a lot of differences as well. So let's start with Will's character. Like I said, I think Will's character is probably the one that's pretty much almost kind of the same, but he's not the goofy one that we know Will Smith to actually be. Like, he actually is going through some shit in this show, or at least in this season of this episode, because he actually has, he actually pulls out a gun. and everything. Like, it's like, it goes there. Like, it really goes there. Like, it's really nitty gritty with this. Like I said, you're going to not laugh as much with this show as you did with the sitcom back in the day. So don't go into this looking for a bunch of laughs. I'll put it that way. The next character I wanted to talk about, and this character probably had the biggest transformation out of all of the characters I've seen on the show so far, and that's Hillary. As we all know, Hillary back in the day on the sitcom, she was this spoiled brat. She was always spending her dad's money. She never had a job. She couldn't do anything for herself. But this Hillary, she's ambitious. She's an entrepreneur. She's a social media influencer. She knows how to cook. And when I saw that she knew how to cook, it reminded me of the episode when she was trying to she wanted to make dinner for someone, and she actually had Jeffrey to cook, but he had to tend to baby Nikki at the time, and there was a little fire that happened, and instead of her getting like an extinguisher to put the fire out, she grabs a pan and bangs it over the stove and almost breaks the stove top to put out the fire, in which that really didn't do anything. But in this one, she's the complete polar opposite of that. She, like I said, she works. She's a social media influencer. She's an entrepreneur. Like this is a whole new Hillary right here. And I like that they completely evolved her character from what it was here. But like I said, this is a reimagining. To remake it would mean that she's the same exact way. The next person I want to talk about is Ashley. Ashley, in a way, still kind of similar to her character. She still has like that young innocence type of thing to her. She didn't have that many scenes in this episode that I saw. Hopefully, going forward, they'll give her a little bit more to do and a little bit more to dialogue. But like, she still has that innocence about her. Like, if you remember how she was in the first season of the show, the original show, she was always around Will because she kind of looked up to him in a way that she couldn't look up to Carlton. So it's almost like it's almost like Will was the older brother that she didn't have, that she wished she had through Carlton, but she couldn't have. So she still has that little innocence about her. She's still young. And, we know Ashley Banks. The next person I wanted to talk about was Aunt Viv. They got it. This Aunt Viv right here. I think she's more calm than the original Aunt Viv. This Aunt Viv, she's more laid back. She's more in tune with now. She's not as strict as I would say, or stern as the original Aunt Viv was. And maybe, like I said, maybe that can be a good thing, or maybe it can be a bad thing. Because sometimes they say when you're really not hands-on with your kids, sometimes your kids can stray away from you. But we'll see how that goes as the season goes on. The next person I wanted to talk about was Uncle Phil. Uncle Phil is currently running for district attorney, and he's he has to hobnob, as they call, with all these bougie people. Probably some he doesn't want to, but he does what he has to do in order to get to the position that he wants to be in. And it actually comes out that he is the one that put up the money for Will to get out of jail when he ended up getting locked up because of the whole gun situation that happened out in Philly. And he was the one that suggested that, well, maybe it was Aunt Viv that suggested that he come out to Bel-Air to live with the family. And that's basically, his character. Like I said, this is all going off of the first episode. So like I said, I haven't dived deep into the seasons yet because this is the first season and only 3 episodes have aired, and I've only watched the first episode. So I can't really give a whole overview of every single character. This is just first impressions off of everything that I've seen so far when it comes to these characters in this show. And that's pretty much Uncle Phil right there. The next person I wanted to talk about is Jeffrey. Jeffrey is way different than the Jeffrey from back then. This Jeffrey, first off, he's not from London or the UK or wherever Jeffrey was from in the first one, in the original one. This one, I want to say he's either from Africa or from Jamaica. He has an accent, and it sounds like an island accent, but I'm not entirely sure. But he is smooth as hell. Let me tell you, he has a demeanor about himself where he talks to you and is not in a shady way that he was back then, in a comedic way. And I'm glad. He's like a real smooth talker, and it's like he only has to say something one time to get his point across, and that's it. And also in this show, he's not a butler. He's what you call a house manager. I'm not entirely sure what a house manager is or what a house manager does, but he's not a butler. So he's not serving the Banks family. He's not cooking for them. He's not cleaning for them. it's almost like he's part of the family. But they say he's a house manager, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look that up to see what is a house manager, because I'm so curious as to what that is, because that kind of blew my mind. But like I said, Jeffrey's just smooth. He is like, the way he talks is just like, he's just like a smooth like character all the way through. The next character that I wanted, it's one particular character I'm saving for last because I have a huge issue with this character. And also, let's talk about, like, even the other characters. Like, they even have Jazz in here. We got an introduction to Jazz. Now, what they did with his character was different, because in the original show, Jazz already knew Will from Philly. Like, they practically grew up together. But in this show, Jazz has been living out in California for some time. And I think he is from Philly, but he's been living in California for some time, basically as a driver, like as an Uber driver. And how ironic, the car that he drives has the dice in the mirror, like in the show. So like I said, I like that they're pulling some nuances from the original show while also doing their own thing at the same time. And Jazz, when we meet Jazz, to Will, he's a complete stranger. Like, they don't already know each other. He's a complete stranger to him, and all he is just right now is he's a driver to Will. They ended up bonding and ended up, creating a bond that, of course, we know is going to develop into a friendship. I wonder if they're going to keep in the story of Jazz developing a crush for Hillary, because as you know, that was one of the main reasons that Jazz constantly got thrown out the house, is because he always kind of tried to hit on Hillary, and Uncle Phil would toss him out of the house. I wonder if they're going to do something like that too, or he was always doing something crazy. But what I've noticed is that they haven't had him do anything goofy yet that would warrant him being thrown out of the house. The next person I wanted to talk about was Lisa. Now, this actually caught me by surprise. As we know, Lisa in the original series was played by Nia Long, and her character didn't come in until like the 3rd or 4th season. But in this show, she's already here. And she also goes to Bel-Air Academy, which in the original show, she never went to school with Will. They met when they were in college. So to have that there is interesting. And she's also part of the swim team. So she's a swimmer, and she's trying to, try out for the Olympics and everything like that. So she's already there in the story. So that's just another different thing, a different take on an already classic show. Now, the last person, and there's a reason why I'm saving this person in particular for last, and I think everybody who has watched this show so far have come to the consensus that this person is a grade A asshole and a straight up dickhead, and that's Carlton Banks. This Carlton is miles different from the Carlton we are familiar with, and that is not in a good way. Remember how I said that this Hillary that we know right now is way different, and we like her like this, even though we still like the Hillary from back then. This Carlton is way different in a bad way. So this Carlton, Carlton, he's the spoiled brat of the family, and I think it's because he's the only boy. So my take is that he's jealous of Will, because Will is, he's coming from Philly. He has this demeanor about himself where he could come in, kind of plant himself anywhere, and people will just warm up to him and everything like that. Especially since Carlton's been out there, he's like the big person on campus. Everyone knows him. He's on the lacrosse team. He's like one of the popular people in the school. And I feel that in his mind, Will is threatening his reputation. So this guy, Carlton, this version of Carlton, you're going to go into this immediately hating him. I'm telling you right now, let me just give you a little rundown of a couple of the things that he did in the first episode. The first thing that he did was when he took Will with him to his lacrosse practice, and he said, just meet me in the locker room at 3 p.m. That's when our practice ends. And then Will comes into the locker room, and Carlton is there, the only black boy there, and a bunch of white guys, and they're rapping to this song, and the N-word and the word nigga is being thrown around so much. And all the white boys are the ones pretty much saying the word, and Will comes in and is like, hey, yo, what are you doing? Like, you can't say that word. And I said, it's amazing how realistic that is even today. He said you can't say that word. And then one of the white boys tries to get into Will's face and everything, and Carlton pretty much just lets it happen. And then he kind of pushes him out of the way, to break it up, to avoid there being a fight and everything like that. And then Carlton comes and hits him with the, oh, it's just the word and everything like that. And then they leave and go back home. And then that's when him and Carlton get into it some more verbally than anything. And he says to Will, like, why are you getting upset when there are black and first off, I didn't like how he said black, because you know how PC said there are black, they gotta enunciate the word black. There are black rappers that say it every single day. So why are you getting mad when a white person says it and everything like that? And then that's when Will had to basically give him the rundown of what it is and everything like that. Like Will jumped into his conscious bag in those scenes right there, and they cursing, like literally they are cussing each other out until Aunt Viv walks in and basically has to break it up. The next thing that he does is when they go to this pool party. And also another thing they changed in here, Lisa and Carlton are exes. That's something else in there, because in the original show, Lisa and Carlton had no type of intimate relationship. They only knew each other because of Will. But as far as them being in a relationship in the show, that never happened. But in this show, they were exes. And her breaking up with him, or him breaking up with her, I can see why. And I hope they explore a little bit more onto why they broke up, because there was a little interaction they had when Will was at the party in the beginning, towards the beginning of the episode. And when Carlton came over and was speaking to Will, and Lisa was there, she kind of like went from being all smiles around Will to being kind of standoffish towards Carlton. So something tells me that their relationship ended on a bad note, and hopefully they explore that as the episodes go on, because I'm curious to know why they broke up, and I bet you it's because it's something he did, most likely, based on his character that we see so far with him right now. The other part was when, like I said, they was at a beach party, and Will was talking to Lisa, flirting with her, dancing with her, and then Carlton looks over at him, and oh, before I even finish that, this guy Carlton is up there doing lines of cocaine. He says it's Xanax unless he's cutting the Xanax up into little pieces into powder form, and he is doing lines of in the closet. Like he's in the walk-in closet that's in Will's room, and he's doing lines of cocaine or Xanax or whatever he calls it, and he's doing the same line at this beach party. Like he's on drugs. He's a goddamn basehead. But anyway, he's at the party, he sees Will flirting with Lisa. They're dancing, talking, and then all of a sudden, what sets him off is when he looks over and he sees them kissing. Carlton gets up from his table, walks over to power walks over to Will and pushes him into the pool. Now, keep in mind, Will told Lisa when he was looking at her swim at the school that he couldn't swim. So by him doing that, Will could have drowned if Lisa wasn't there to jump into the pool and save him and pull him out of the water. And Lisa basically says, like, what the hell is wrong with you? And he says, you're just flirting with him just to make me jealous. And I said, and that's probably definitely not the case. And like I said, she just doesn't want to be with you, and you just have a jealous streak about yourself. And then all of a sudden, Will gets out of the water. He goes over to Carlton's friend, which was one of the head PC boys who was saying that N-word while rapping that song. Will already was on edge with him to begin with, because they were about to get into it in the locker room until Carlton broke it up. But Will swung on him and knocked his ass out. Then he goes over and looks at Carlton, and then he swings on Carlton, and the episode blacks out after that, and it's the end of the episode. But that's pretty much like my first impression of this show is I'm enjoying it. I'm actually surprised. I am very surprised at how good this show actually is. I'm really enjoying, so far, just off of the first episode alone. When I get off here, I'm going to go and watch the other 2 episodes. Like I said, don't ask me to do a review of every episode of this show. This is just me giving my first impressions of the show to let you know that I liked it. Gave you a little bit of backstory on each of the characters, the tone and everything like that. I might come back maybe at the end of the season and say how I felt about the entire show, in its entirety, from this point forward. But I'm not going to do an ongoing episode review type of thing. I mean, I could, but I'm choosing not to do it because that could be a lot. So this is my first impression. I would highly suggest that if you are a fan of the original series, you will most likely like this as well, because they go in another direction with it while still holding true to the original story of the show, while giving a more dramatic, grittier spin on it, which I'm glad they did. And I'm glad they did not straight up and down do a remake. And in case y'all didn't know, the reason is the whole way this idea came up is because somebody put a video together of what the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air would be like if it was like this, and it took off. And it's just amazing how an independent idea just took off, and now it's on a major streaming service under a major network. So that's pretty much it. Y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments. Is this a show that you could see yourself watching in the future? Or do you think this is one that you'll pass on? Have you been watching the show? And if you have, what do you think of it? But y'all let me know what y'all think down in the comments. Like, share, subscribe. If you are new, make sure you go and hit that bell so you can be notified every time I upload a new video or go live.